Hello everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den, where we have bonus episode time. Well, less bonus episode and more catch-up episode, because really, I do need to get caught up, especially now that things are settling in so nicely. But let's talk a little bit today about playing your character's alignment. Now, I've been running the Witch series for a while now, and I'm still researching the major and greater hexes, but that's still going to take a little bit more time for me to produce and get all the different images set up so I can talk about it for the episode. So we're doing something else here that's been on my mind a little bit. Specifically, like I said, playing your character's alignment. It can be a little bit tricky at times because some DMs insist that you play it almost exactly, and they'll do a lot to keep track of it, and some players are that way. But at the same time, some players also take their alignment as an excuse to just be absolutely wacky and outlandish, and while that's a lot of fun and can be really, really goddamn hilarious, it's a little bit trite after a while. It stops being funny after about the 100th time or so. It's like somebody's playing a Deadpool-esque character. It's like, his personality is crazy because he's so totally random. It gets old. And it's the thing with the alignment system is that it's like anything else. It's supposed to be a very broad general guideline, and particularly when it comes to mortal creatures. When you're talking about Balors, Pit Fiends, Solars, these different extraplanar beings that are physical and spiritual manifestations of a particular aspect of their alignment, like with Pit Fiends, they are the epitome of lawful evil. They are going to embody that and should have that played to a fault. Like, I joke, it started off as a joke at one point in time, but now it's actually a fully fleshed out NPC that I have in mind for a D20 Modern campaign coming up at some point in the future. But it's a Pit Fiend that runs a DMV office in Los Angeles, as like from the Terry Pratchett book and Neil Gaiman book, Good Omens. You can't just think, you can't think grand, but wide. You have to think about the larger varnishing slight bit of patina of taint and hatred that you can inflict on as many souls as possible. What better place to do that than the DMV office, where there are lines after lines, and the building has been enchanted to make it feel like the passage of time is ticking by so slowly, and everybody's keenly aware of how much time everything is taking. They just can't help but notice the seconds ticking by, and everybody has to process their documents properly. And if there's something out of place, nope, rejected, denied. Oh wait, that's the wrong form. You need to go into the line three doors over down that way. Or you have the right document, but you forgot to sign here. Please fill it out and let the next person in line. Next. Just that kind of insidious lawful evil nightmare, that churning grind of bureaucratic paperwork. That's an instance where the alignment needs to be leaned into and played out full tilt. But when it comes to player characters, your alignment is just a broad general categorization of how you should be playing your character. For your lawful good types, you're generally going to be a character that respects the law and is generally a good person. You're not malicious, you obey the law, you don't see yourself as above it, everybody abides by it, but you try to, try to be forgiving as much as possible within the letter of the law, as much as you can be, and, be willing to work things out with people. Versus a lawful evil person, they absolutely see a need for the laws, but lawful evil sees the need for the laws to serve them. Laws are for everybody else. Laws need to govern and dictate what everybody else does. A lawful evil person will see themselves by necessity as being above the law, and the higher up in a food chain that you go, a system of hierarchy, the more and more true that will be for a lawful evil oriented society. everybody will get away with what they can, but obey their superiors. They'll try to do everything they can to advance. They'll lie, cheat, steal, and blackmail, but they'll do it with subtlety. They'll do it while maintaining the appearance of being within the bounds of the law. If they can make a superior look bad and get them removed out of that place and then take that spot, a lawful evil character will be inclined to do that. But these two extremes of alignment are not necessarily going to be doing those things all the time, just because they're mortal creatures. Mortal creatures are fallible and prone to different flights of fancy. A lawful good person will be prone to, maybe not all the time, but at least eventually at some point having just a moment of rage where they just lash out. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they've stopped being lawful good. It's just in that moment they were driven to a breaking point, and that's how they broke and they lashed out. And other things can change and shift over time. It's, as I keep saying, just a broad general definition. It doesn't mean they stop being a person and become a caricature. But those are two of the more extreme alignments, and alignments that generally don't get played to such a level of ridiculousness. No, the ones that really get played out to, frankly, quite outlandishly stupid degrees sometimes, are the chaotic alignments, specifically chaotic neutral. Chaotic neutral, well, the chaotic alignments are called chaotic stupid for a reason, because, well, just things get played that way. It's chaotic neutral and chaotic evil in particular. Chaotic good, it can be. It just kind of depends on the person a little bit. But specifically with chaotic neutral, what chaotic neutral means is they don't really see the necessity of laws, and the neutral alignment means they don't particularly lean towards good or evil. They tend to be described as free spirit characters doing things on a whim, but that's, as much as a general categorization goes, it's kind of a poor descriptor for it. A lot of people point to Captain Jack Sparrow as an example of a chaotic neutral alignment, and I figure that fits because, he's a pirate. But you'll notice that even as pirates go, pirates, at least throughout the Pirates of the Caribbean films, have their own code. Now, when they choose to respect that code is certainly a matter of convenience up to them, but everybody gets it. Everybody's out for themselves, out for their own. They're out for their own personal freedoms, generally at the expense of others. But they're not always constantly dicking each other over. They're not always doing stupid things constantly. I mean, if you look really closely at the behavior patterns of, let's stick with Captain Jack Sparrow. He always has a goal in mind. It's not random slapdash silliness just for the sake of it. Well, in film, by its definition, the film has to be entertaining, and therefore some of the stuff is outlandish just because. But there is always a goal in mind that Captain Jack Sparrow has. There's always something he's working towards. In particular, that whole plan that he masterminded at the end of the admittedly lackluster third Pirates film, where he drew the Brethren Court, all the different pirate lords and their little fleet out to engage the Dutch East India Company directly. That whole thing right there was a masterpiece of planning, or at least it would have to be, and take a certain amount of brilliance. It takes somebody with a plan, and all the seemingly random different little interactions that he had all worked towards that actually pretty nicely. I was actually impressed with that little bit of writing. Yeah, there's a little bit of contrivance to it all, but the whole thing of he convinces Cutler Beckett to let him go so that he can rejoin the Brethren Court. He links up with Elizabeth Swann and Barbossa. They hold the meeting and they vote for a pirate lord, and it's a majority vote, but everybody understands there hasn't been a king of the court for centuries because everybody keeps voting for themselves. So Jack used his knowledge of that code, of that rule system, to throw a little wrench into everybody's plans there by casting his vote for Elizabeth Swann. Which, well, you know the plot there. The point is, there's a goal. There was a method to the madness. It wasn't just random slapdash, slapstick silliness for the sake of being funny or doing ridiculous things. There was a goal in mind, and that's something that's frequently forgotten by players who select this alignment. Now, there's nothing wrong with playing the occasional crazy character that just does random shit, but it's just bad storytelling to just have everything happening for no reason at all times. It's just not, it's not consistent. It's not how a human being behaves. Even a crazy person will have a reason for the things they do. You know, even a chaotic evil murderer, just a psychopathic killer, will have a reason for what they do. That reason may be the color 7 and be scrawled all over the walls and poop, but it's a reason. There's a method to that madness. There's a driving force, a driving logic behind it. It may be incomprehensible to everybody else, but there will be a consistent level of reason. Just take a look at our own history of different serial killers. They've all had some underlying motivating factor. They've all had some underlying trigger that just drove them as this compulsion to go out and inflict this horrible, grievous harm and death upon others. So even with the dumbest, stupidest, craziest, most illogical characters, there is going to be a methodology to them. There is going to be a pattern. Again, maybe incomprehensible, maybe absolutely crazy ass moon logic, but there will be some consistency there. And that's largely it there as far as it comes to playing your alignments. I mean, you know, chaotic evil characters, yes, they may want to murder everybody and steal all the loot for themselves, but they're not going to do that right away. They need these people. They need these handy little meat shields. Hell, they may even convince themselves in some... If you want to play a crazy person, a crazy, chaotic, evil character, make them megalomaniacal, make them subtle and insidious, or at least play them like they think they are. But their megalomania gets the better of them. The rest of the party can decide how they respond to that. But a megalomaniacal character is going to see the need to have useful meatbag pawns in there to absorb the hit so that their glorious, imperious person doesn't suffer such trivial things like this harm. What's that? Fireball! There, where was I now? See, something like that. Firmly within the realms of chaotic evil. But you know, there's at least some kind of reasoning there for them to maintain the party around with them. They may murder the party or party members at different quiet points, but even a crazy person is smart enough to understand they need to do it in isolation so that they don't get caught by the other 2 or 3 people hanging out with them. Now, with that said, that's been my bit on different alignment systems and how to play them. If you have your own thoughts, please leave them down below and comment. And if you liked the video, maybe consider clicking the like button over there. And if you've been enjoying content here at the Gamers Den, why not consider subscribing and making yourself a regular member here? We can always use more people. But with that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. You guys have yourselves a good night.